You ever been the lone target? Hello and welcome, my friends, to the inaugural edition of SEAL Week. You are in for a treat with this episode and all of the episodes this week. I've got some true heroes on board for this. And it's all part of my charity swim that I did in January of 2015. And I'm doing it again January 2016. It's a 3.1-mile swim, 5 kilometers across Tampa Bay. And it's part of the Tampa Bay Frogman Swim. And all the money goes to the Navy SEAL Foundation, which gives money to many families of Navy SEALs that have either been wounded or killed in the line of duty. And so this Tampa Bay Frogman Swim, I donated to it a couple of years ago. A classmate of mine from the Air Force Academy actually cross-commissioned into the Navy, and he is still on active duty as an 06, which is a captain in the Navy. So a full bird colonel, we'd call him in the Air Force. But I donated to him a couple years ago, and he said, "Hey, you should do this swim with me." And like a crazy fool that I am, I said, "Yeah, I should do that swim." Having never been in the open water, I swam out about half a mile to Seal Rock here in Southern California a few summers ago because I'm crazy. But I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." So I trained, I swam. It was tough doing it the first time, but I've been swimming ever since, and I love it. So I set up a URL at helpwesswim.org. Helpwesswim.org. That's where you can donate. You can donate $5. You can donate $5,000. The goal for each swimmer is to raise at least $1,500. My goal this year is $10,000. Last year, the goal for everyone was $1,000. And I set a goal of $5,000 and almost hit it. So I really want to get up to that $10,000 this year and blow it out of the water. But today's guest is Joel Lambert. I won't steal too much of his thunder, but he was the first guy to step up. So it was really cool getting to talk with him. He's made an interesting transition into Hollywood, and he's got a television show that we'll get into. But again, all of these guys have made the transition from being active duty SEALs into the business world. Some went voluntarily. One story you'll hear about, a gentleman was shot 7 times and lived, and is a motivational speaker. He's an inspiration. He's a hero. So it's great to have this coming out during the week of Veterans Day. So again, the only thing I ask of you is to donate. Okay, helpwesswim.org. And the second thing I would ask is that you share these episodes. These are great stories. Again, it's a great cause. But these men have really interesting stories on how they made the transition. It was not easy for all of them. And so hearing the lessons learned apply to anybody in any situation, trying to make it on their own in sales, trying to make it as an entrepreneur, trying to launch something, that means something to them if you're trying to make it on your own. So please, share this and donate, and let's bring on Joel. Joel Lambert, madman, former Navy SEAL, television superstar, entrepreneur. Welcome to the Sales Podcast, man. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Wes? Happy to be here.
I'm good. Thanks for coming on the show. We are kicking off a special feature here. We're doing SEAL Week, and you are numero uno, the number one first guest on this. And we're doing this to promote the Tampa Bay Frogman Swim, which I'm participating in January 17th. 2016, and all the benefits go to the Navy SEAL Foundation. So I appreciate you coming on and helping to spread the word and enlighten our members, if you will. But without, I've got a little synopsis of your history and background, but for our listeners that may not know who you are, would you mind taking a minute or two, or 17? I mean, you got a storied past, but take a minute or two, kind of give them a thumbnail sketch of who you are and what you do, and we'll dive down the rabbit hole.
Well, my name's Joel Lambert, as you already mentioned. I spent 10 years in the SEAL teams. It was life-changing. It was life-defining. It was the greatest experience in my life, and that continues to drive me. And now I do a couple television shows on Discovery Channel, one called Manhunt. It's also called Lone Target in the U.S. and Capture the Special Master in China. Where it's an escape and evasion show. I insert into foreign countries. I pierce their security. I cross borders. I come in from the ocean. I skydive places I'm not supposed to be. And that country's Special Operations Force, Fugitive Recovery Team, or Specialty Tracking Unit deploys all of their assets, attempts to take me down with thermal imaging, tracking units, tracking dogs, air assets, whatever they happen to have, they throw at me. And I am moving, hiding, escape, evading. There's survival. There's anti-tracking. There's counter-tracking, ways to disguise my trail, to deceive them as far as my direction of travel. I set booby traps. I actually go on the offensive. And if I make my designated extract point in anywhere from 12 to 48 hours, I have an extract platform waiting for me, and I get lifted out of there. And if not, I get taken down, and I get taken down hard. It's a pretty exciting thing.
All right. Now, before we go much further, I just want to confirm one thing. I mean, being a SEAL was almost as hard as being a weather officer in the Air Force, right? I'm like, it's like pretty close?
It's pretty close, yeah.
Pretty close. All right. I mean, so that's why I have you on the show. I mean, you got to be a badass to be on this show, man. So how did you make the transition? You know, I mean, we could obviously go on for years just hearing stories of the stuff that you did, and you have to kill me after you told me. But how did you find that transition from being in the military to entering, you know, the private world, if you will, and becoming an entrepreneur? I mean, you're doing something, even though you've got a great background, it's not obvious. Not everybody gets into business. Not everybody makes that transition to such a grand scale, being on TV like this. Can you walk us through how you made that happen?
Well, the transition, there were a lot of transitions. There was mental transitions. There was emotional transition. There was adapting to a different culture. That was a major transition, and not just a culture out of the military, but adapting to the culture of film and TV, which is very, very different. In some respects, it's diametrically opposed to military culture. In other respects, as far as the departments, the efficiency, the grips and the gaffers and the wardrobe and the directors and all the people involved, it's very militarily structured. So there were a lot of transitions that I had to do, but I think what was most important was I had decided I wanted to climb another mountain. You know, I had climbed a mountain and I had seen the vista, and it was an amazing thing, and it was a great experience being on the peak. But as I climbed that mountain of the SEAL teams, I realized that it wasn't the peak that I was in love with, it was climbing mountains. Right. So after I decided to get out, which was a big decision in and of itself, I knew that I wanted to go back down to the valley again and start climbing another mountain. So it entailed becoming a beginner again. And that is a difficult thing, to go from something that is so revered and where you are such a highly trained and specialized and efficient person and operator and go to a beginning again,
right.
Be a beginner again. That's not something that's easily done. So that was probably the biggest transition. I think the whole reason I'm at where I'm at today, and the whole reason I became a SEAL as well, the whole reason I achieved that, was that I took the step that was right in front of me. And not often did I see the step after that. But I took the step that was in front of me, and the next step would reveal itself. But if you're hanging back waiting to see 2 or 3 steps ahead of you, you're going to stay there for a very long time.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up, because I like to play devil's advocate on these interviews, because I mean, you do have an elite background, and I don't want people to think, well, he's a badass Navy SEAL, of course he reached this level of success. You know, so I'm glad you brought that up, because you did. I mean, you voluntarily did step down off of a peak, but I appreciate, like, you enjoy the challenge. I mean, Now, being in the military, obviously you have others with you. And you had mentioned before we hit record, that things never got easy, but they got better because you did have a team. There were others with you, and to a lesser degree, I can relate going through basic and at the academy, and I looked around like, man, this sucks. But like my buddy was still there, so I was like, he ain't quitting, so I ain't quitting, and you just keep going. But as an entrepreneur, here I am, just like you right now. I work from home. I got my family with me, but there's days I go, sometimes weeks, I don't see another individual face to face, to jump in that water with, to climb that mountain with. So how can somebody find that support in the private sector? And have you struggled with that as well?
Well, I have a group of veterans that in film and television, which has been a great help. It's a group called Veterans in Film and Television, in fact. It's a loosely formed group of former military servicemen and women who are working in various capacities and various levels within film and television. We have directors, writers, camera operators, actors, hosts, some beginning their careers and others that are actually at very high levels of their field. So I think you find your tribe. For me, at least, I found my tribe, and that was a big help. But I don't think that was entirely necessary. I was going to go no matter what. I was going to do this no matter what, whether anyone was with me or not. But other people doing the same thing that are going to do this no matter what, whether anyone's with them or not, and you find each other. Like attracts like, and iron sharpens iron, and you gather those things, you'll attract, I don't want to get into any kind of weird, self-help stuff, but you really do kind of attract what you put out,
Right.
And you find people find each other that are doing the same things or that have the same mindset.
Right.
And we see each other in that, and that's what helps us grow and be strong.
So if I had to summarize what you just said, then, take the leap, right? Whether you're alone or not. But having someone with you, having somebody in that foxhole with you does make it better.
Absolutely.
So, it's not that you avoid the group. You went on your own, but you did find the group and you find help and support in that group. However, if there's some I'll keep this clean. Some weak ones in the group, you may leave that group behind and find another group.
You may, or you may help the weak ones. It depends. I'm not. That's an interesting point because there is a time that you leave the weak ones behind,
right?
But then there's also a time where you reach out and give a hand because we all need those moments. There are those speed bumps. There are those moments where the brother helps you out, or the friend gives you that little boost. But there's a difference between giving somebody a little boost and carrying their load, right. Shouldering their load.
Right.
I love helping people and other veterans and other special operations people that transition into this industry. But those people are people that are going to do it anyway.
Right.
They're going to do it on their own anyway. Right. And that's who I want to help. It's the ones that aren't going to do it on their own. It's better to let them fail so they learn quickly and move on to what it is that they really need to be doing.
Right.
That's your thing.
Yeah, and I've experienced that myself. As I was growing my business, I would sometimes get upset. It's like, hey, this guy is big and famous. All he'd have to do is give a shout out and my business would grow, and then he wouldn't. But, as I've grown, I realize it's like, seeing my wife bear my children, right? There's a benefit of going through that birth canal, right? There's a benefit. I saw a thing where they were helping butterflies, cutting them out of the cocoon, and they die.
Yes.
Because they don't have that struggle. The struggle is part of it, right? Going back to it's climbing the mountain is really where the joy comes from, right? But But when when you're in 32-degree water, I might swim in 55-degree water. I don't know if I'd swim in 32-degree water. But when you're in that cold water, you're like, how do you keep that focus and go, you know what? This is all right. I will get through this. This is part of the journey, and embrace it. How do you embrace those tough times and not quit?
That's a good question. I think there are two things. So first, I want to address what you had just said about climbing that mountain. And when I got to the peak of the mountain, what made me realize I wanted to climb more mountains is that what drove me the entire time I was climbing was get to the peak, get to the peak, get to the peak. I'm going to get to the summit. I'm going to achieve this. I'm going to get to the summit. And when I got to the summit, I realized this is amazing, but it's not the best part. The best part was back down that trail several miles where it was pitch black, where it was dark and freezing cold, and I had no idea what was going on, and I couldn't see an inch in front of me, and I wanted to collapse in a heap and cry and sob because I was so overwhelmed and miserable. That's where the growth happened. That's where the best things came from. Is not the peak, are those moments where we grow the most. So those became very valuable to me. And then, what was the second part? Oh.
How do you? Well, you kind of talked about it, but how do you embrace that? Right? How do you stay positive, or even just stick to it? Right? When you are dark and in the dark and cold and wet and hungry, and scared, and like, why am I here? Why don't I heard the post office is hiring. I'll just go work for them, because slugging this out as a salesman, dialing for dollars, as an entrepreneur, I got a family to feed. I got to close this next sale, or, the kids won't play. I can't get them in the soccer league or whatever. I mean, that's what weighs down on entrepreneurs every day. Yeah.
I had my method of getting through those miserable moments. And I'll tell you what it took to get me through Buds, which was, this is exactly how it happened for me. Buds is overwhelming. Basic underwater demolition, the SEAL screening and selection process. It's overwhelming. If you look at, from the beginning, everything that someone has to go through all these days, if you look at all of that, if you try to take that in and process it, you're done. You're going to quit. That's what we're trying to get. We're trying to get rid of those people that'll quit. But then if you look at just the first phase, okay, I'm about to start. I've got this much stuff to do, and the rest of it doesn't exist. You can make it through that. And then that week gets miserable, and it gets really, really hard, and you think, you know what, I can make it through this week. I can look at this week. Nothing else exists this week. I can do it. And then the day gets harder, and you think, I can finish the day. I can finish the day, and then I'll think about whatever I need to think about. But I'm finishing this day. And then the run gets miserable, and pain starts really, really happening, and you think, you know what, I can make it to lunch. Lunchtime. I get to sit down 30 minutes. I get to eat some food. I'm going to make it to lunch. And you make it to lunch. And then it gets even worse. And you're in the water and you're freezing and you're being surf tortured. And the misery is there. And you think, you know what? I can finish this evolution. I can finish what we're going to do. I'm not going to quit right now. I'm going to finish this little bit that I'm in. And then I'll reassess. And then you're on a run and you're sprinting or you're swimming and it's misery. And you think, you know what? That next beach marker, I'll make it to that next beach marker. The harder it gets, the smaller your focus needs to become until you are right here in this present moment. And I'll tell you what, anybody can survive or handle anything in this one moment. I can hold my breath for this moment. I can sprint really hard for one moment. I can endure this pain for one moment. And you forget what's in the future. And you forget what's in the past, because the past is just a figment of your imagination. The future, by definition, will never exist. All that there is this moment. And if you can learn to survive in this moment and break things down to what you can handle, then you're never going to stop.
Right.
Because you're always right here in this moment. And that's what worked for me.
So that was awesome. I've got a question. I mean, I've always bounced back and forth, right? I've got planners, I got goal sheets. I mean, I've gone back and forth between big goals to little goals. I mean, on the one hand, obviously you had a big goal, and that was become a Navy SEAL. But then you had the little task like hang on for 5 minutes, hang on for 30 minutes. And so what do you recommend to people on setting the big goals, big lofty goals versus the little ones? I've always personally struggled with the big goals, but I would write them down. It's crazy how often I find myself, I'll literally find an old goal sheet from 5 years ago, and I'm surprised how many things I did hit, even when I didn't look at them all the time. But I've always been the rubber meets the road, no fluff, no hype. It's like, let's help you make some money. Like, I'm working with entrepreneurs, and they want to do all this grand stuff. They want to have a TV show, right? I'm like, well, let's make you some money today or this week, right? Because if you can stay in business for the next 6 months, then you can stay in for a year, and then you can get on the TV show, right? So how do you balance super big, lofty goals and, oh, my gosh, here's what I need to do this week?
Yeah. For me, when I make big, lofty goals, I don't dwell on them too much. And I learned this by making this big, lofty goal of being a SEAL and then being forced in order to achieve that goal to take it in not even bite-sized pieces, but to sip it through a cocktail straw was how I had to take these moments sometimes, because it was overwhelming. If I would look, I'm going to be a SEAL. I'm going to be a SEAL. You know what? Boom. The gigantic reality of what that would entail would have washed me over. So I set the goal, and it drove me, but I didn't dwell on that. I then looked at what was right in front of me, that one next step. And that's how I tend to do things. And if you look at anything great, I have all these friends from high school and family members and stuff, and they say, well, look at you were a SEAL, and now you have your TV shows internationally, and you're doing all this stuff. That's just you. You're like the golden boy. No, it's not. You know what I did is every single day I put one – try to keep my words clean here. Every day I put one small brick on top of another brick.
Right.
Another brick, another brick. And now I'm standing on top of a giant pyramid looking down at all this stuff I've done. But all I did was just put one brick on top of another every day. Every huge monument that you see, every giant world wonder is made up of little bricks, little rocks that are put together. And if you look at those little rocks, none of them are hard to move. That rock, I can stack that on top of that rock. Yep. And the next day I'm going to stack another rock. And the next day I'm going to stack another rock. And if you just are diligent, look at what's in front of you. I have this step that I can take. It's 4 inches in front of my last step. It's nothing. It's insignificant, but I need to take it because if I don't, there's not going to be another step. So I take that little step. Sometimes I get knocked back a couple steps. And then I just look, okay, what's that next little step? Boom, I can take it. What's that next step? Boom. I don't see any other steps in front of me. In fact, it looks like there's nothing. It looks like there's a cliff, but I can move another 4 inches forward. And I do. And then you know what? The next step every single time appears. I have never, ever been let down by taking a step and not seeing the next step. Sometimes you hang out there for a minute.
Right.
But it has never, ever, in everything that I've done, not appeared. So take that step because the next one will present itself to you. And pretty soon, you'll be standing on top of the Eiffel Tower. A whole bunch of little bricks. No, Eiffel Tower, really not. That's not a bad analogy. No bricks in Eiffel Tower. Empire State Building.
There you go. One of those. Well, I didn't do anything crazy like you did in the military. Mine was pretty calm, relatively speaking. But just doing this swim, as we mentioned, before we turned on the record, I'd never done anything like that. And, a lot of it was like I was doing up to 3,500 meters in a pool, and like some days not feeling it. And I remember so many times, like, just push off the wall one more time, get 50 more meters. Get there and back. And I get there and back. I'm like, all right, do it again. And, I'd push through it even to this day. So now I've trained for a year and a half steadily. I mean, I swim, 2 to 4 days a week, 2 to 3,500 meters. And some days I don't feel it. And a lot of times, like, I know, like, I'm tired in the beginning. And then I get that second win and I know it comes. And it's crazy how I always finish strong. No matter how tired I am, going on with life, chasing kids, running a business, I feel stronger at the end. I mean, have you experienced that? I mean, just you get that adrenaline almost, and success builds success?
Absolutely. And the time that I experience that is just like when you experience it in the pool. I train a lot. I work out a lot. And sometimes I just don't feel like it.
Right.
Whatever, I'm tired. I just don't want to go. And I think about what my workout is going to be, and I'm like, screw that. I'm staying home. But then if I think of it in a different way, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go to the gym and I'm going to do 10 or 12 pull-ups. Yep. I'm just going to go or I'm just going to go and get in the water, stretch out a little bit. And I go to the gym, and inevitably I end up having a kick-ass workout.
Yep.
Even though I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go and roll out. I'm just going to go and stretch out. I'm going to go. Yep. Just stretch out just so I went. Just so I can say I went to the gym,
yep.
did 10 pull-ups, did 10 push-ups, stretched, hung on the gravity machine or something. And I go, and pretty soon I'm like squatting 400 pounds, and I'm snatching, and I'm doing sprints and stuff. I'm like, yeah. And I come home and I feel tremendous just because I went to stretch out. I'm going to go stretch out. So all I did is instead of looking at this huge workout that I had planned, I said, no, I'm not going to look at that. That doesn't exist. I'm just going to go to the gym.
Yep.
I took that step.
Right.
And the next step presented itself, and inevitably it was some giant leap.
Yeah. Well, I know, running my own business, I've had some dark days, but I did always go to the gym. I did not always have a great workout, but I would always go. And, for years now, I don't even know how long, but I have not missed a Monday leg workout. And I moved the leg workouts to Mondays because I just learned, it's such an important lift. You got to do squats. You have a strong foundation. But if I miss a chest workout one week, I'll be sore later. But something about leg day, man. If I miss one leg day, I feel like I have the flu later on, when I do hit the gym again. It's like, if nothing else, do that little bit, and that feeling, it may last one workout, but you know what? Hey, speaking honestly, it's lasted 6 or 8 months for me sometimes when I'm just in like, how am I going to turn this business around? How am I going to grow it? I got 7 kids, man. They all want to eat. And I got a big dog. He likes to eat too. And I got a wife. She doesn't eat too much, but she does like.
Yeah, don't say that, dude.
She does like to eat out a lot. So I wish she would eat more at home. But hey, there's some dark days over 9 years, but you just got to keep going, right?
For me, the darkest days are the ones that later down the road were the most rewarding. I look back and I'm like, you know what? That's where I was growing. That's where real things happened. All these great days, these amazing moments were because of those dark days.
Right.
That's why I'm having these great days is because of a dark day. And maybe not that I even did anything tremendous in those dark days, but I just endured it.
Yeah.
I just stayed there.
Held on.
Yeah, even if it's just curling up in the fetal position sometimes and just please let it be over. But staying there.
Right.
You know what? I was talking with some friends, some SEALs recently, and we were talking about how we felt at times in buds. And I will tell you, there were times that I sobbed in my rack away from everybody else. I was a kid. I wasn't a, big tough, commando. I was a kid going through this selection process, and I sobbed like a baby on occasion. And I doubted myself the entire time. I felt this big going through buds. I felt this big. But you know what the difference between me feeling that way now and a guy that maybe went through training and didn't have any of those experiences and is a complete stud and handled everything like a rock star? You know what the difference between the two of us is today? Nothing. We both made it through training.
Right.
We're both SEALs. Both wear the trident.
Yep.
Doesn't matter how you did it.
Yep.
Nobody remembers that.
Yep.
They just remember if you did or didn't.
Well, and putting that in perspective, for people that are listening, it's like maybe it means you made that one more call, or maybe you decided to host a webinar and you've never done a webinar, or you start a podcast, or you start a blog, or you start an Instagram account, you start a Facebook page, you start advertising on Facebook because you've never done a PPC campaign. Now you go, I'm going to spend money on an ad. Who am I? Am I going to make money if I spend that? Maybe you won't, right? Maybe you will lose money on your first campaign, your first 10 campaign. Maybe you'll do a webinar and no one will show up. And you'll think, I'm a loser entrepreneur, but you know what? I've had plenty of webinars, nobody showed up. You just keep doing it, right?
Right. Yeah, the one common word in everything you said was start.
Yep. You got to start. Do you think society now, especially with social media and everything, it sugarcoats things too much? People are just, it's easier to hide their BS. They go, look how beautiful I am. But it's like, that's the 87th picture you took in front of that bathroom mirror to get one good one. Yes. You know,
I think it works both ways. I think that it gives something for people to hide behind, for sure. I mean, there's all kinds of Nigerian money scams and catfish things and bizarre stuff that goes on social media because it gives people something to hide behind. But at the same time, it also is a great equalizer. I had something happen very recently with a company that I felt like I was treated very badly and wasn't allowed a refund on something I had purchased. When I had emailed immediately, like, well, we had a mistake, a miscommunication, and they wouldn't offer a refund. And so I took to social media, and the playing field's equal there.
Yeah.
And I immediately got a refund just by the power that it gives people. So I think it works both ways.
Sure.
It can be a very, very bad thing,
yeah.
But it can really empower, give people a platform. Music artists, they can reach people in ways that we've never been able to do before.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, you can be as big as you want to be. Huh? You have as much impact on the world as you want to have with the tools we have at our disposal today. Huh?
Exactly. But it's very revealing, if you put yourself out there, who you are is going to eventually come out.
Right.
So make sure you got something good to offer. That's my advice.
Well, man, this has been fantastic. Coming up on 30 minutes. What are some words of wisdom you'd want to leave our listeners with? Imagine they're, on a treadmill at the gym, maybe listening to this. Maybe they're at the airport. They're driving, and so when they get to a place where they can stop and actually pull the trigger and ride the bullet, I mean, what do you want them to take away from this and go do?
I want them to figure out what it is that they want in life, out of life. What do you have to give? What is it what is going to give you joy? Figure out what that is. Find your bliss. Find your joy. Find what it is that fuels you. And don't define that in monetary terms or anything. Money will come when you're doing the right thing, when you're in the right place, where you're doing what it is that you need to be doing. Find that, define that, and then take that first minuscule step, and then take that one. It's going to be easy. And then take that next tiny step. Take tiny steps and do it. And here's what I've found is key. Be flexible to learn and ride the horse in the direction it's going. What you think is what you want might be a little left, might be a little right. You might get guided into something that you may not have expected, but if you pay attention to what's going on, take those steps and pay attention to the world around you, you'll find yourself where you need to be. It may not be where you thought you needed to be, but you'll find yourself there, and it will be an incredible place. Just take those small steps, and you'll end up in an amazing, amazing mountain.
All right. That is awesome stuff. So Mr. Joel Lambert, Joel, right? So Joel, Lambert.com. Thank you for being on the Sales Podcast, man. This was awesome.
Pleasure's mine, Wes. Good luck on that frogman swim.
All right. I don't need luck anymore, baby. I've done it.
Make your own luck.
Now I just got to stick with it.
That's it.
All right, man. Have a great day.
Later.
If that doesn't put a spring in your step, I don't know what will. I loved his advice, talking about making these mental and emotional transitions. He talked about, always wanting to climb another mountain. It's that old adage, they ask, hey, why'd you climb that mountain? It's like, because it was there. And I kind of feel that same thing just with this swim in a small way. It's just something I can look forward to, I can prepare for. It gives me a reason to go hit the gym on days I don't feel like it. But same thing in business. What is your mountain? I mean, I'm growing this podcast. I'm growing my team. I'm changing platforms, bringing in other tools like HubSpot and ActiveCampaign and Entreport to complement the stuff I've done in Infusionsoft, bringing out a mastermind program, live events. So working on another book, so I have to put mountains in front of myself as a business owner. You know, Jack Welch always talked about if the change outside of your organization is greater than the change is within, then the end is near. So what are you doing to constantly keep yourself going? I mean, one of the biggest things is to surround yourself with experts. Surround yourself with motivated people. Surround yourself with good people that'll push you, and you can turn around and push them. You know, that's why you always hear in the Navy SEALs, they talk about being in the teams, right? Because they are a team. They do nothing alone. They're always looking for that surprise advantage, right? You always talk about, you know, in sales and in business, you want to negotiate from a position of strength. In the military, you want to attack with overwhelming, aggressive, decisive force. Okay, you're not going in there hoping you can win. You wait to take your shot, right, to plan your attack, to kick off your attack when the odds are in your favor. You know, so surround yourself with a great team. Go back and listen to this. I mean, his advice about embracing the darkness, embracing the valley, looking back and seeing that's when the growth came. I mean, that is so profound. It might even slip by you. So set aside some time this week to re-listen to all of these. We have some great episodes coming up. Tomorrow we've got Mr. Scott McEwen. Scott is the author of American Sniper. So the book and the blockbuster movie about Chris Kyle, you know, the most lethal sniper ever. He is not a SEAL, but he lives in the SEAL community very closely, knows a lot of these guys. He's an attorney by trade turned successful author. He's got more books coming out. Again, a great American, a great individual in business that has had several careers in life. You're going to want to hear what he learned from his time working so closely with all these SEALs, working on the book, working on a movie with Clint Eastwood. But remember, ultimately, the reason for all of this is to raise money for the Navy SEAL Foundation for the Tampa Bay Frogman Swim. So please donate at helpwesswim.org. Any amount is appreciated. Nothing is too little. Nothing is too big. And if your company matches donations, please let me know because that option is available as well. So again, it's at helpwesswim.org. Please share this with other great patriots, great Americans, great entrepreneurs, especially during this week as we celebrate Veterans Day on Wednesday, November 11th. And as always, remember to sell different. And may God continue to bless our troops, and may He continue to bless America.